Good afternoon, everyone. For this Workflow Wednesday, I'm going to walk you through how to design a jig to hold on to this part in this case for a fourth axis. So let's jump into it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm in the design workspace. I'm going to create a new component, and this is actually going to be my fourth axis jig. And the reason for that is so that we can track everything under one component, making our life a little easier. Now, I am going to make this in two pieces, and the idea is we're going to run a bolt through this actual trigger area to hold it on our machine. So let's go ahead and create another component. Again, just making our design much easier. This will be the Arbor. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create one more just to get ahead of the curve. And we want to file this actually under the fourth axis jig. And this will just be the plate. Now that we've done that, I'm going to start with the Arbor. It tends to be easier in my opinion, but you need to come up with a design that's specific to what you're going to do. Now, I'm going to do this with a couple of really nifty quick tricks. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start by sketching right here on this profile. And then in my case, maybe I have some round stock that I want to work off of. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop just a couple of very simple circles. Now, I don't know on your fourth axis the way you plan to hold this or how you're going to fixture it. I'm going to treat it as maybe I have a Haas HA5C with a 1-inch through kind of spindle area on those 5C cowlets. And as you can see, is I can actually do quite a bit here. So let's say, for example, my stock was actually 2 inches around. It's too small to fit. So I may want to look for something bigger. Again, we could actually do a rectangle here as well. The idea is I would like to get this where I can get a good hold on some of these flat areas to pinch together, but then use this profile inside the actual trigger area as almost like a cog to spin my part and to keep it constantly clocked. So I'm actually pretty happy with this design that we have sketched out here. So what I'm now going to do is I am actually going to extrude everything. And I'm going to go ahead and actually just bring this guy out, maybe 375. Again, I'm going to go ahead and turn that sketch back on. And the idea now is, again, is we're going to do another extrude. This extrude on the backside is actually going to go back the other way. And again, the idea here is we want this to actually protrude. And this is my opinion on it. I want this to protrude almost all the way to the other side of this. And the idea behind that is so that we can actually get as much material in that trigger well as possible for alignment purposes. Now, again, I'm going to do another extrude. This final extrude here, we're going to get that body out of the way. We're going to go ahead and just extend that Arbor kind of center area. And if I turn my sketch back on and my body, we want to go ahead and join these two together. So again, as you're seeing is these dimensions we can clean up after the fact, but all I've really done is positioned that profile I want to use. And again, I'm using a piece of round stock because it might just be something I have laying around, but I'm creating a physical body that we're going to now combine and cut away from. So with my combine command, we're going to go ahead and target this body. My tool body is going to be actually this part here. And what we want to do is we want to cut, and of course we want to keep the tool. This is very important. So you do want to still keep the original part you guys are working on. And what you're going to see happen is if I turn off my original part, I now basically have a negative profile of everything and anything we were just working on. So the trick of this is going to be now is we need to go through and clean this up any way possible so that we can actually hold on to this part and make it so that we can slide that part in and out. So the first couple of things I think I'm going to do is at a very easy level is I'm going to use the control key and I'm going to grab some of these profiles here. I'm just going to use my delete key. And as you can see by using my delete key, I'm able to actually start to eliminate things that I may or may not want. Now, keep in mind here, guys, is as you start to do this, you are going to want to turn that sketch off because it's going to get in your way. But the more you start to do this, you are going to get to a point where you're going to notice that you have some weird chamfers, things like that. But now that we've separated this, we should have hypothetically two bodies here. So again, as I'm going to turn off that body to get it out of the way, and I'm going to continue with this process. So a key thing for you all to remember here is you do want to go through and you want to remove kind of like your fillets and your chamfers first. This tends to really help the process. So again, as if I get rid of that, see how it removed the entire feature for me. Again, making my life much easier on this part and this profile. Again, I'm going to go down and around here and see if we can grab all of this in one shot. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. You may have to select more or less. But let's go ahead and get positioned here. And again, I'm going to go ahead and hit my delete key. And as you can see, I can basically remove anything and everything with that delete key very quick and easy with a couple of face selections. And we just can start to rinse and repeat everything that we're doing here. So again, is this feature right here, I may not want that on my actual Arbor. So again, as I selected and deleted, and as you're noticing, it's starting to actually remove more and more. But if I turn on my original body, this is where we can see where are we holding on to, where are we sitting flat. So maybe that was being removed way too much. Again, if I'm trying to sit flat against this surface, so again, we could actually use Control Z to back that up a little bit. And this is just something you guys are going to have to do time and time again inside the software. So again, if I'm looking to sit flat there, I may want to remove just this piece. Again, notice how that opened all of that up. I don't want anything down here on the bottom. So again, as I can go through and select that and hit delete also. And again, there you're starting to see that error where we can only achieve so much with what we're trying to do. We'll come back to this here in a moment and fix that some more. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to continue with the idea that I want to just kind of open up and get anything and everything out of the way if I can. So as you're seeing me struggle here with my scroll wheel, this is a good time to have a space mouse if you have one, or a 3D connection mouse. Again, based on our deletion there, notice how that whole piece actually combined it. It didn't remove it. Well, it did remove it. It actually filled it in. So again, I'm going to have to go through, select a couple of faces and hit delete. So I'm going to keep working through this little by little to get stuff out of the way. Looks like we do have a little bit of a weird feature that came through here. And from that, you're going to notice that it's not really difficult to clean this all up and get it to a point where you could use it as that jig for what you want to use. So again, as you're seeing me do, I'm approaching this a couple of times where maybe I remove smaller features or I have to remove stuff one at a time to get it out of the way. But once I get it, again, back to a profile that I may or may not want, I can actually, again, just highlight faces and hit delete. I'm actually starting to like this more and more. We can turn on our original body. As you're seeing, it is now sitting in there very well. We are still making tons of contact in the flats. And down here at the bottom, this would be up to you, but I'm actually going to remove this bottom area, knowing I have to get in and machine stuff here. So let's go ahead and move back over to that. So again, grabbing basically this whole lower profile, we might get lucky, hitting that delete key. And just like that, that whole lower profile is gone once again. We do have to always pay attention here because we want to make sure that we're not actually still making contact. And again, as we could do another combined here in a minute to see if we are making that contact. But as you do this more and more, you're going to find all the little tips and tricks that I'm showing you here on what you can and cannot remove with delete. Again, based off our design, we don't need a chamfer down in here. That could actually stay very square. And that's just, again, being able to just fast come in, use the delete key to remove anything and everything you don't want. As you're seeing me do here, I'm going to go ahead and remove this island because, again, we don't need the actual island to mate up to our actual physical part. So again, I'm just holding control, using my delete key to get it out of the way. Again, toggle back on my part. As you're seeing that little cutout there, we're actually going to be sitting mainly flat against a couple of these faces. So it looks like we're going to be holding on to this face and this face for the most part. And that's the main elements that I am using to actually sandwich against on this profile. So again, we have that inside trigger area to actually create our clocking off of. But then we also have this outside kind of flat area that we're pinching against. And again, you can add as much or as little as you want to this. So if you guys wanted to, you could actually just eliminate like this whole top area if you want. Again, we're going to go ahead and attempt to get rid of that half round there. As you can see, that came out no problem. Again, just picking these profiles and using my delete key goes a super far way when it comes to any of this stuff. So again, as I know I don't need anything here, I'm going to go ahead and, again, grab all these edges. You're going to see me do this one in two parts here. The idea is I'm going to remove the lower fillet first, and then I can go back and remove the actual island that's sticking up. So once you kind of proof out everything you want, you get it to your design. I'm going to go ahead and stop here because I don't want to bore you guys to death with just me deleting features. The concept is that we now have our arbor. Again, because of the way Fusion works in extruding, you can see we have some very thin material here that you may or may not want to keep. Up to you guys, as always. You could go ahead and just select that and delete it. You could actually go in and we could change our extrude dimensions, or we could even extrude off of this just as is to give that a little bit more thickness if you needed it. But now that we have this, I do like this quite a bit. This is a very simple design. We can utilize this design now. We are going to actually create now the mating part, which is going to be the end plate on this design. That plate is now active. So again, anything we do based on the plate, the mating plate, basically, we want to make sure that we have that active. Again, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to turn on our main part. As you can see here, here's my main part once again. If you guys wanted to, again, this is 100% up to you. We could reuse kind of the circle that we created from the other side. This would be a good time to be able to do a two-sided extrude. So if I wanted to, I could say two-side extrude. Again, I'm going to just grab all of these profiles. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this guy out. And it looks like I didn't pick two-sided. But as you're seeing here, I can now set this to anywhere and everywhere that I want. So again, the idea is we need just enough to meet up against our flat here. So if I actually click that arrow and then I come in, I could actually pick the face, or I could say extrude to. Now, I want to add a little bit of a gap here. So as you can see, I'm going to go ahead and plus in an additional 50 maybe, or that might be way too much where we're not mating down flat on this side. So again, what you guys are going to do is going to be based off your design. As you can see, I actually screwed that up where I picked that surface. I'm going to go ahead and pull this out further and tilt us a little bit here. I want to go off the flat of my arbor, not the trigger housing. And now I can go in and I can say, you know, plus 50. And as you can see, we now have that gap between the two. Oh, we went ahead and say shift equal signs. But now we have that gap between our arbor and where that actual piece is sitting. Again, this is all 100% up to you. My personal opinion would be is I would actually set this guy straight to the lowest flat. It'll make my life much easier. So now that we have that, we could just kind of rinse and repeat. I'm actually going to go back and not extrude that out as if it's a monstrous thick piece, but we could do our combine. Again, just walking you guys through this process. We could combine this guy with this guy. Again, this is a cut. We want to keep that tool. And then let's go ahead and isolate this guy so we can work on it. So what's going to happen is you're going to see that I can right click and I can go to isolate. And now I can work on this model without interference from anything else. So again, just going right through what we just did, we're going to go ahead and remove some of these features. As you're going to see, that now is going to possibly give us a whole nother body here that I could just delete out of the way. And I'm just picking those parts and areas one at a time and hitting the delete key. So again, just using your control and your delete key, we could walk through this. In this case, we're actually getting a little interference on that part. And again, this is where you guys just have to walk through and delete things one at a time. So again, as I'm going to back this up a little bit, and I'm going to start by deleting this guy if I can. And now notice by deleting that first, it now allows me to change how I'm deleting out other areas. So again, each scenario is a little different. How you select those faces will make all the differences as well. If you are working with something that could be considered perfectly flat, or as I like to always check, make sure that it's not just a second body. In this case, it is. You can't delete a body completely technically, and that's why we're getting that interference. But same thing applies, right? So I know I don't care about any of these little islands in here. Knowing that this part is actually relatively flat, you guys could also do things like press, pulls, and extrudes. So if I grab these islands and pick that flat face, again, you can notice that I can get rid of those islands just with a simple extrude. So again, coming down and around here, I'm going to go ahead and select all these couple of faces here. Same thing, using my delete key, for the most part, just wiping things out as much or as little as I can to get rid of it. And sometimes, again, you create a whole extra body that's not going to be needed. So from here, as always, we can go ahead and just remove, right? That's our game plan as of right now. We also don't want anything that could interfere with our part. and how it's going to align. If there's maybe an overlap or a step, we can fix all that stuff. So now for the fun stuff. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn on my Arbor and my actual plate that we're going to use to mount this. Again, you guys are going to clean this model up a lot. We could create sketches all day long, extrude rectangles, things like that. But let's go ahead and actually add in our hardware. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into Fusion 360 and we're going to add a hole. And what I'm going to do is and this is why I like the idea of a round face to work with, is we're going to go ahead and place that right on the surface that we want to work with. So as you're seeing here is we have this body here. I'm going to go ahead and pick that surface to work on. So right here, I'm going to move this to center. And this is the key element, again, is because we actually are working with that round face, is it's automatically going to give me center of that face. Now, I just have to plug in my profile and my information. So again, this is going to be a counter bore. This is going to be for a clearance. You know, this is going to be possibly a flat bottom, things like that. So now we could actually set the dimensions of this hole for what we're doing. Again, we could actually go tapped here as well. And again, you're going to have your upper shoulder versus your threaded area, things like that. But the concept is still the same. What we want to do is just basically create the profile that we plan to drill and bore out to bolt our two pieces together. So if I go through here, I'm a big fan of half 13s if we can get away with it. So we're going to go half 13. As you're seeing here, we have all that information set up inside of Fusion 360. So now we can actually build this as we're going to more or less machine it. So again, this is kind of a quick way to add that feature in. Fusion does now, so you guys know, you could actually go up here to the top and we could insert a fastener now. This is a super cool thing, especially with your jig and fixture design. As we can go through, we can go ahead and search. We just need, a bolt. Maybe we want not a hex head. Let's go back real quick. We're going to go for a socket head, shouldered, maybe, yada, yada, yada. Yes, no, maybe so. Everything and anything. Again, it's going to be up to you guys what you guys want, and we could actually place that right here in real time. Again, these specs don't line up. I'm just showing you guys just a neat way to be able to bring this stuff in and utilize it on your part. So now that we've designed our jig, we have our original part as well up here, and I am going to just turn everything on and get our sketch out of the way. You can now see how we could use this to our advantage to actually machine this part. So now that we know everything is going to rotate around center, what does the machining side of this look like? So let's say, for example, I want to do some stuff on this buffer tube. So if I'm going to go in, I'm going to create my setup. As always, we do need to set our Z and our X. And if we're using a fourth axis, our Z is probably going to be up off the flattest area. So you can dial indicate that in initially. And then my X axis is going to point towards my fourth. So I actually did mine a little bit backwards here. So we're going to go ahead and spin it this way. So if you think about the machine, and we might add in a fourth axis machine here, it's going to hold on to directly center of that arbor. Now, my location where I am going to set everything from, this is up to you. I'm going to use a selected point, and that selected point, in my case, I like using this big flat here where I could probe or edge find off of, and then center of my actual rotation. So from that, we have that all set up here, and I do need to select the model, so let's go ahead and give this a model here. You're going to notice that my XYZ is now down and around center, rotating around center. So if I want to go in and do something like a 2D bore operation with a flat end mill here, hopefully we should have a 1/2 inch flat in here somewhere. Now, using my tool orientation, I know X always points towards that cylinder, so I need to set my Z now, and now my Z is set. So what we're going to do is we're going to select that bore. And as you're going to see with obviously a ton of other adjustments, I've just created that fourth axis rotation using that kind of arbor to hold my part. And that's going to be a rinse and repeat from here. So let's go back now and throw this on an actual machine. So I'm going to go ahead and select my machine. We have quite a few different machines out here. So we're going to go ahead and select this guy here. It's going to prompt me to download my model. Maybe I can get lucky. Do I have something local that doesn't require downloading? I do. Perfect. So again, as we're going to place our part on our rotary, I know this rotary isn't necessarily the Haas HA5C, that's understandable, but we're going to say selected point to selected point. So what I want to do is I want to define the center of rotation of my part. I want to go ahead and define the center of rotation of my arbor. and where that's going to sit. So I'm going to pull mine a ways away so you guys can see this in real time. We're going to go ahead and let this load in upside down. As you can see, it could be a little frustrating. But from here, if we go into our machine simulation now, what you're going to notice is we've now tilted that actual part vertical, and we can machine that out. So again, with the modeling side of Fusion, it's very easy to create your own custom jigs and fixtures or arbors to hold on to awkward parts, to be able to clock them and be able to reduce the number of setups or the number of vices you're going to need on your table. So as always, guys, you guys have a great rest of your day. With that said, though, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Hence the reason why you guys are watching this video is you know Phil Brown here at JIT CAD CAM. And you also know that we provide you tons of training services, from these videos that we provide for free online to custom one-on-one sessions and even full support packages with post-processor edits. So if you want more information about that or want a custom Fusion 360 demo, go ahead and reach out to me with the email down below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can.